welcome into NewsWire here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Ranieri, stepping in for one Craig Mish, and here are some of your leading headlines on this February the 20th now, 2024. And we're going to start with college basketball last night as we had a battle between two top 10 teams in the country, and both happen to reside in the Big 12 Conference. Number 2, Houston, taking on number 6, Iowa State, two of the best defensive teams in the country, and boy, did it show up there last night. Houston defends its home court and actually avenged an earlier season defeat at the hands of Iowa State in Ames, Iowa. They took them down, though, 73-65. Now, important to note here, and we say it all the time, those of you, every half point matters, right? Those of you that may have said that was entirely too many points, which early in the day yesterday was 9.5 points. That's how many points Iowa State was getting last night. Well, if you bet it early, you cashed. If you waited until tip, well, that line was 8 by the time it got to the tip. So every half point matters when it comes to spread betting. We say it all the time here on the SportsGrid Network. If you did get 8 because you waited until the last minute, you ultimately push. No harm, no foul. But keep in mind, the earlier the better. Every half point matters when it comes, especially in college basketball. So Houston now sits atop the very crowded and talented Big 12 Conference. They now by a game over Iowa State, who they just beat. And boy, oh boy, they're going to have their hands full coming up on Saturday. A trip to Waco, Texas, to take on the very dangerous Baylor Bears. So, yes, Houston, we're going to learn a little something here about them coming up over the next couple of weeks. Are they as good as we all think they are? I'll keep it in college basketball because we did have some other action last night that had, we saw an all-out brawl last night, which might have been one of the funnest things that we have seen in a long time. It happened at the end of the Texas A&M Commerce Incarnate Word game. What game? Who? Yes, Texas A&M Commerce versus Incarnate Word. A game, by the way, that went to overtime, was eventually won by Texas A&M Commerce. But as the teams were shaking hands after the game, a crazy fight broke out, and all you could see, some of the pictures and videos we're seeing, is one of the team managers was seen leaving the floor with a bloody face. It was not a very good look there for the Southern Conference, and of course, they are vowing to make sure this kind of thing never happens again. And as good as the Houston Cougars were last night, and they were good, guys, voters made UConn this week the very first unanimous number 1 in the AP Top 25 poll this season. And boy, oh boy, anybody that's been following along, the defending champs are without a doubt poised to make another run at a national championship here and be the first to go back-to-back. And we had to look this up last night. It has not happened since the early 2000s, 2007, 8, I believe. The Florida Gators, with Billy Donovan as the head coach, now the head coach of the Chicago Bulls, that was the last college team to go back-to-back and win a national championship. So it has been a while, and UConn is looking to do it themselves. And boy, oh boy, in this day and age of NIL and transfer portal, the idea of going back-to-back, that is pretty impressive with what they're doing there at UConn. Also pretty impressive what they're doing in Arizona, as Arizona coach Tommy Lloyd has just signed a 5-year extension. And Coach Lloyd, you may recall, replaced Sean Miller back in 2001. He got into a little bit of trouble there with some recruiting and shoe companies. But they did win the Pac-12 in his first season as coach there in Arizona, and he has coached teams to number 1 and number 2 seeds in the NCAA tournament, and it looks like this Arizona team will be heading for another top seed in the tournament coming up this season. He is a Mark Few disciple from Gonzaga, and good for him. One of the truly good guys in college coaching, Tommy Lloyd, getting paid here. And Teresa Gould now becomes the first female Power 5 commissioner. She was appointed to the commissioner of the Pac-12 yesterday after the former commissioner there had stepped down earlier in the week. She had also served as the deputy commissioner prior to stepping up here and taking over whatever is left of the Pac-12. We do have some NBA news as well here. How about the Brooklyn Nets doing everything in their absolute power to be as dysfunctional as humanly possible? Well, they did end up promoting their assistant, Kevin Ollie, former UConn great, to the interim head coach spot. Why? Well, they fired Jacques Vaughn yesterday, and he is going to end up, Kevin Ollie, making his coaching debut, I believe, tomorrow night against the Raptors. Now, the Nets have 28 regular season games left before they can start making golf arrangements because that is about as dysfunctional an organization as you will find. Mike Conley, Timberwolves, a new 2-year extension worth $21 million. Kudos to Mike Conley, been around forever. And how about LeBron James saying he hopes to end his career with the Lakers? Okay, LeBron, sure we will. Also, NBA executives are flocking to Tasmania. Why? Well, they want to bear witness to what many believe will be the next superstar player in this kid, Alex Sarr. He's projected as the number 2 pick in the upcoming draft, and he has been playing in the Australian League. And boy, oh boy, there is a ton of buzz around this kid. The only problem is you got to hop on a plane, drive halfway around the world to go see him play in Tasmania. Also, we did have some other news yesterday. How about William Byron? Congrats, the first career Daytona 500 win. And let's not forget, pitchers and catchers are reporting to training camps, guys. That means baseball is back. It also means the Washington Nationals will once again be garbage. That's right. However, the Nationals owner, Mark Lerner, is saying now the team is no longer for sale, which is kind of weird because he used the sale as the excuse for actually lighting a match and burning the whole team to the ground after the World Series win. So interesting what they've decided there. And also Zach Wheeler, heading into the final year of his contract with the Phillies, he's looking to sign some sort of long-term deal with them. We've got much more to get to here. We'll talk some NBA now that we get ready for the second half. We'll do that next here on The Grid.
Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you can't, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
What about any confidence, faith, optimism for them to get back into the top 4?
But in terms of the league form, a lot of times it kind of drops off towards the end of the season because he demands a lot of his players. And they don't quite have the subs for rotation that some of the other teams around them have. So a little bit of a drop-off, I think, is expected for Aston Villa here.
Pro League Soccer powered by Marca. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back in. It is NewsWire here on this Tuesday now, February the 20th. I'm Joe Ranieri in for Craig Mish here on the SportsGrid Network, and we will focus our attention on the NBA, who has a couple days off here before they resume action here on Thursday this week. And we welcome in our good friend Kyle Irving of the Sporting News, out west, getting up at the crack of it to hang out with us here on NewsWire to talk a little association here. And Kyle, listen, before we get to what's about to happen here in a couple of days as we get ready to focus on the remainder of the regular season, I don't know that the All-Star game can be saved. I've had this conversation now with a bunch of people. Adam Silver gets up the microphone basically saying, we talked to everyone, we know the game. Everyone hated it last year, and it's going to be more competitive. And there's nothing competitive about a team that two teams score 194 points in the first half. A team scores 211. And there's no monetary value. I just don't know how, if you're Adam Silver, you think this product can continue the way it is. You worry that, are you turning more people off? It's not really a game. It's like a glorified company softball game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what we saw on Sunday was the world's best players in the NBA going through the motions for, what you'd like to call the world's greatest pickup game. And then I thought it was hilarious how Adam Silver hops on the mic afterwards, like he's, a disappointed teacher that comes in after the substitute teacher leaves like a long list of everything that everyone did wrong. And he's like, yeah, the East put up 211 points. That was nice. And you could tell the disappointment in his voice, and the players are kind of giggling in the background. And, I'm with you. I don't know if it's a fixable product. I mean, I would even go back to All-Star Saturday night, where for, the 8th year in a row, the slam dunk contest disappointed. And we saw that the best viewership of the entire night was during the Steph versus Sabrina shootout. So I'm here to pitch the idea of, you move for years, ever since the Aaron Gordon, Zach LaVine slam dunk contest in 2016, the best event has been the 3-point contest. I don't think anybody would debate that. I'm here to pitch the idea that you move the 3-point contest to the main event of Saturday night. I think the best thing that I've seen in terms of all-star games and competitions is when the MLB went to, a home run derby bracket style where players go head to head. I think that would be a great idea for the 3-point contest. You get maybe the 6 best shooters in the NBA, maybe the 2 best shooters in the WNBA, pin them up against each other in a bracket style and make that the main event on Saturday night. I think that's a good way to kind of revive, and bring energy back into the building on Saturday night. And then when you go into Sunday, I'm not sure anything can really get these guys to dial in and play the way that we would want them to play, at the intensity they would play a regular season game. So maybe it's a 3-on-3 tournament. You can still do East versus West. It's still, 24 players. You make whatever it is, 4 teams of 3 on each side and have those players compete. And, these players are still competitive and they're some of the most competitive people in the world. So if you were to put them up against each other in a half-court 3-on-3 tournament, the same way that we see, at Team USA camps over the summer, where those clips always go viral of players going at it, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. I think that's a way that you can kind of revive this because, I'm not sure upping the incentive from $100,000 for the winning team to $500,000 for the winning team is going to get these guys to play any harder.
The problem is, unlike past generations, all of these guys are friends. There is no villain in the NBA. So there is no Charles Oakley who would rather cut your legs off than allow you to score 211 points on any game he was involved in, or Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant. I mean, killer. And I think we have some killers in the, I think, talk about Kawhi Leonard is a guy that would rather eat his own than lose. So Tatum, same thing, but you don't have any enforcers. You don't have anybody that just doesn't like you because you're wearing the uniform. These guys are all banana boating it and drinking wine together in the off season. So it's like, I can't handle that. What do we do with the Nets though? Because this team is hot garbage. I mean, poor Jacques Vaughn, talk about just wrong place, wrong time, set up to fail, you name it. What are we looking here at the Brooklyn Nets' future?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, they parted ways with head coach Jacques Vaughn. They promoted Kevin Ollie, who, he won a national championship with UConn in 2014. He was the head coach of the Overtime Elite Project, that development program down in Atlanta that has sent a couple prospects to the NBA. And then, he jumped on the Nets coaching staff, and now he's going to take over the interim job. But, that is not going to be a forgiving job for the rest of this season. I mean, the reason that they parted ways with Jacques Vaughn in the first place, this is a team that, yes, they had Kyrie and KD at the beginning of the year last year, but they were still a team that made the playoffs. They were still a team that took a game off the 76ers. And going into the All-Star break, they weren't even in the play-in picture. So, you got Ben Simmons, who can't on the court consistently. They're trying to build around Mikal Bridges, but he has kind of had a little bit of a regression this season compared to, the spark that they saw after they traded Kevin Durant for him at the deadline last year. So now, there are reports from Adrian Wojnarowski yesterday. They're planning on reshaping the team to build around Mikal Bridges this offseason, but you still haven't really seen that he can be the number one guy, go-to scorer, kind of two-way player that can lead a franchise to the playoffs and potentially beyond. So, Kevin Ollie's going to take over for the rest of the season here. I think it's going to be a feel-it-out process of which of these players can actually fit around Bridges, and then what can we do with the open cap space? What can they do with the kind of pieces that are available in the free agency market and who becomes available on the trade market in the offseason? Because as of the way that this team is structured right now, they're not set up to do anything better than potentially make the playoffs, but I don't even think they could win a playoff series.
Yeah, stability matters, and they have none. Over the last couple of seasons, it's just they can't even finish the season with the guys they started with because trades and everything else. They're trying to get they gave the whole world up to get Harden. Now they're trying to get some of it back. And it's a mess for the Brooklyn Nets. And quite honestly, it's self-inflicted. So it's very hard to feel bad for them in this spot. We do have, of course, an interesting remainder of the regular season when it resumes on Thursday. It kind of feels like it's the Boston Celtics in the East, and call me crazy. I mean, I know the West is loaded, but you're not beating Kawhi Leonard and healthy Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Harden, and you're not beating them in a 7-game series here. It feels like and no disrespect to Denver, but that's a lot of basketball they've played over the last couple of years. They don't have the depth they had a year ago. Is it Boston and the Clippers in your mind here on a collision course?
I still feel like everything runs through the Denver Nuggets, honestly. I mean, just the way that Nikola Jokic has been able to turn it on and off whenever he'd like this season.
Yep.
I think that we're really going to see him tap into the level that we saw during the playoffs in the second half of the season. I think he's really going to, kind of flip a switch and elevate Denver. But, I agree with you in the sense that the Clippers are a team that you have to be aware of. I mean, they struggled when they first got James Harden. They really started to figure it out right before the All-Star break. And as long as Kawhi Leonard and Paul George can stay healthy, and, stop me if you've heard that before. I mean, we've been saying it ever since they went to LA 4 years ago. We're finally seeing how dominant they can be when they are both on the court at the same time and they can stay healthy. I think they would really, really give Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets trouble if that team can stay healthy and they match up in the Western Conference Finals. I think it is kind of shaping up to be a crash course that way. And then in the East, it does feel like it's Boston's to lose. I mean, the Knicks are making a charge. The Bucks are struggling. The Cavaliers have been one of the hottest teams in the NBA since the new year, but it feels like Boston has been able to run through whoever they'd like whenever they turn it on. So it feels like it's going to be them, to me, versus either Denver or the LA Clippers.
Yeah, and by the way, where was Porzingis at the All-Star game? Did he not like? Oh, that's right. He's not at all. Yeah, that's got to be the best guy on a team that has a chance of winning a national championship that nobody considers to be an all-star is beyond me. Kyle, appreciate it so much, my man. It should be a heck of a remainder over the next couple of months here as we get ready for the NBA playoffs. Enjoy them, my man. We'll talk to you again next week. NewsWire returns after this.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
What about any confidence, faith, optimism for them to get back into the top 4?
But in terms of the league form, a lot of times it kind of drops off towards the end of the season because he demands a lot of his players. And they don't quite have the subs for rotation that some of the other teams around them have. So a little bit of a drop-off, I think, is expected for Aston Villa here.
Pro League Soccer powered by Marca, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
right, welcome back in. Very happy Tuesday to you here now, February the 20th. It is NewsWire here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Ranieri in for Craig Mish, and we got a lot of headlines in the business side of sports betting, and nobody better to talk with us and get us caught up with what's going on than Matt Waters here of the Legal Sports Report. And Matt stepping in here on the Tuesday, and well, Matt, I'm in South Florida. So Craig Mish and I not too far from one another here. So this story, I am shocked that it's even still a story because I thought it would have been over and done with already. But it appears, I guess the prize picks, the bettors, the underdogs of the world, did they really think they'd be able to play in this sandbox without actually paying to be in that sandbox? Because it feels like the Seminoles, not exactly a group that I would think would allow that to go unnoticed here. What's the latest on this?
Yeah, Florida might be the worst state to try to be sneaky about gambling, right? The Seminoles are going to have no part of that.
No.
But look, this isn't just a Florida issue. This is a national issue for these DFS operators who host pick'em games. And whether the pick'em game or the fact that it is against the house is the issue, these companies and what they're offering, they don't exactly line up to what we have in mind for daily fantasy sports and the legality of it and the regulation of it. Because let's face it, these contests, they just look like prop parlays. And you have states that are taxing at high amounts, they're charging license fees, and they don't want competition against the people that are paying them taxes from somebody who's not paying them taxes. It really is as simple as that. And like you said, can't believe this is even still a story, because the cease and desist, the first round, that came out in September, Joe. And so they came out, and just like in many other states, they've been like, yeah, okay, all right, well, we'll talk to them. We'll see what it is. And now we're starting to see a lot of these pieces fall into place after the Super Bowl. And so you have to wonder if there were talks about, like, look, let us get through the Super Bowl, and then we'll try to figure out how to go about this. But Florida especially, it's just not gonna fly there. The Seminole has so much power. Jim Allen is not afraid to go out in the media and press and call you out and say what you're doing is illegal gambling. And so I think we're going to start to see this in a lot of other states. And you look at last week, Prize Picks paid almost $15 million to New York in order to get back on, their good side and be able to apply for a license in the future. They've received cease and desist from Kansas and Arkansas last week, excuse me. And again, in Florida, it's amazing that it's gone on for this long, and that the Gaming Commission is still being as lenient as they are being. They're saying, look, if you get out by March 1st, we will not take any further legal action against you, which sounds like a pretty good deal to me for these companies. One of them's paying $15 million in New York, and now in Florida, they're saying, look, just leave and we can call it even. So the bigger story about this, obviously, is how are the DFS laws going to evolve? Or are they going to evolve? Do they not evolve? We know that some of these companies have in mind launching a sports book for themselves, but some don't. And so are they going to continue to try to push this parlay prop pick'em product across the country when it looks like the gambling regulators are starting to say, no, you can't do that. We already have sports betting in our state, and you aren't licensed for it, and you aren't paying us the tax dollars. So it really is an interesting story for DFS to be popping up again and to be relevant. It feels like 2014, 2015 to me with how much we're talking about DFS here. But it's a big story because these companies are legitimate competitors with the DraftKings, the FanDuels, whomever. They are fighting for the same kind of customer. They are operating in states where these sports betting companies are not licensed to operate. So they're building up a database and they can have a jump on things whenever that state does legalize. So this is a really big story right now. It's one that we're watching. It's one that I don't think anybody can honestly tell you they know how it's going to finish up, but it's choppy waters right now for these DFS companies.
So it looks like, so March 1st, it looks like pretty much all of them are going to cease any operations in here. But I think it's fascinating to your point. We talked about this back in September when they first got slapped with the cease and desist, and we were like, oh boy, you had to know this was coming. And then at that point, we were kind of still, it was in the is Seminoles, are they going to keep going? Are they going to flip the switch and turn on the app? What's going to happen? The fact that it's gotten to this point now, I think the line has been drawn in the sand. But quite honestly, I just don't, with sports betting, unless I'm missing something, this is a product that Hard Rock here in the Seminoles can offer, right? It's not like it's out of the realm of doing it. So you want to offer a product, but you don't want to have to pay the money that the Seminoles had to pay in order to be able to do business in the state. Like, this all felt like a house of cards, and it was coming down at some particular point, not just here, but any place else. There's companies paying that money to do business in the state for this type of betting.
Yeah, as much as the companies want to argue that their product is legal under DFS laws, that's all well and good.
I'm all for the little guy, but give me a break, dude.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, when you're not paying the taxes, you're not paying the license fees. People want this money for education, for whatever the money's going towards.
Yep.
No legislator wants to see this money leave.
Yep. Is it possible? Is there a scenario in your mind where everybody can work together here? I mean, the Seminoles, they were given basically monopoly, and we know this, and that's been argued and debated. But they have left the door open and said, listen, if you want to come and do business in Florida, you just got to include the Seminoles. Is there a path where everybody can work together in these companies?
It's hard to say. It depends on the size of the sports betting company or the DFS company when it comes down to it. Because when you get into deals like this, the margins get razor thin. And so is it going to be worth it for any of these companies to partner with the Seminole? Maybe not, right? Because at the end of the day, the Seminoles are never going away. They're never leaving Florida. So I just don't know if partnering with them just for the little slice of cash they could get, if that would really, be enticing enough.
What have we learned here since the Super Bowl has come and gone here with some of these companies? Was it a absolute boon for the DraftKings of the world, for the for the FanDuels of the world? Did they make hand over fist? Do we have any idea how this season has worked out for them?
So we've learned a couple of things about the NFL season and the Super Bowl with a couple of these earnings calls that have come out. DraftKings, for example, those last 2 weeks in November were terrible for the books. They lost $126 million in EBITDA. That's basically just your cash flow, right? They lost that in 2 weeks because of these favorable outcomes for the players. But on the flip side of that, they still had like more than a 9% hold. And it's because of how these companies are pushing their parlay products. These same game parlays, and now you have the parlays where you can parlay multiple same game parlays. I mean, they just so rarely win. And they're fun to do, right? They're fun to show your boys and be like, yeah, I got 7 legs, definitely going to crush it tonight. And DraftKings wants you to do that. They want you to do that. It's the most profitable thing for them by far are these parlays. And so we found out from DraftKings that, yeah, Kansas City winning in the Super Bowl was really bad. But because of their mix with the same game parlays, they expect to be right about where they forecasted for hold. So, I mean, that's great for DraftKings. It's great for these bigger companies. Now, the smaller guys are going to get whacked by it because they don't have the same kind of parlay product. They don't have the depth of it. They don't have AI trading to keep up with the prices. You know what I mean? So the smaller guys We'll find out more about them, but they definitely took a little bit of a hit. Caesars, for example, they expect to say that they had made 29 million in digital adjusted EBITDA, but they could have had 58 million had it not been for those 2 weeks in November. So, we're finding out that, yeah, football weeks, bad weeks can sting, but the way that these companies are now building their product, presenting their product, and serving their product to customers, they're basically building profit in no matter what happens with these outcomes. And that's something that I didn't expect to see, at least this early on in the industry.
Yeah, well, they're targeting the newer bettors, right? It's basically, to me, it's a lottery ticket. You're going to play a 14-leg parlay, or you're going to parlay a same-game parlay times a par. It's a scratch-off ticket. That's basically what you got, and that's who they're looking for. And there's certainly plenty of folks around there for sure. Matt Waters, I appreciate it, my friend. Always a pleasure to get to hang out with your Legal Sports Report. We do have much more to get to as NewsWire continues here on the Grid.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
What about any confidence, faith, optimism for them to get back into the top 4?
But in terms of the league form, a lot of times it kind of drops off towards the end of the season because he demands a lot of his players. And they don't quite have the subs for rotation that some of the other teams around them have. So a little bit of a drop-off, I think, is expected for Aston Villa here.
Pro League Soccer powered by Marca, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
welcome back into NewsWire here on this Tuesday. Joe Ranieri in for Craig Mish here on the SportsGrid Network. We've got much still to come, including another PGA Tour event heads to Mexico. We'll talk with Brady Kannon, get his thoughts on this tournament. But first, plenty of college basketball tonight. Great card, in fact, and who better to lay it all out for us here and what to expect than our good friend Ben Stevens. Ben, what do you got for us here tonight?
Joe, a monumental Tuesday night in college basketball around the country, including the hottest team in the sport, the reigning national champs. The number one team in the country, the UConn Huskies, on the road somewhere in the middle of America in Omaha, Nebraska. A top 15 tilt against 15th ranked Creighton. And Joe, as you will see, 2.5-point number in favor of Dan Hurley's Huskies, albeit on the road. The over-under, 144.5. UConn is the hottest team in the country, Joe. They have won 14 consecutive games. They have covered in 9 of those 14, booked as a favorite in all 14 victories. When you look at this game, though, for UConn, the last road win for the Huskies over a top 25 team was back in January of 2014, now a decade ago. They are 0-20 in these games, a road team against a ranked opponent since that last win over 10 years ago. Creighton, meanwhile, only an underdog twice this year, both coming in Big East play, both on the road against Marquette and these Huskies. 0-2 against the spread. Creighton in the last 5 years, Joe, only booked as a home underdog 6 times. They are 3-3 against the number. A huge game tonight, a 2.5-point spread in favor of UConn in a top 15 tilt in Omaha. Top 25 matchup that we have tonight in Provo. It's BYU taking on Baylor. Baylor, a huge weekend matchup ahead at home. Back in Waco against number 2 Houston before they get there. A road trip against the Cougs tonight out in Utah. 3.5-point number in favor of BYU, who, Joe, is struggling slightly in Big 12 play. Their inaugural year in this conference. 6-6. They have not covered in 4 straight games. In fact, Joe, they've only covered twice in this span of their last 6 games, both being at home as a slight favorite. Baylor this year as an underdog 3 times in Big 12 play, Joe. They haven't won outright in any of those 3 contests. However, 2-1 against the spread. Over under tonight in Provo, 155.5. The Cougars over in 7 of their last 9 games. One of the most prolific 3-point shooting teams in all of men's college basketball. So, Joe, a huge Tuesday night around the sport in CBB, less than 4 weeks away from Selection Sunday.
All right, Ben, great stuff. Looking forward to the card here tonight. We'll have a play or two coming up, but we got to talk some PGA Tour action because it's getting good here now as they head from out west, making their way to my neck of the woods here in Florida. And Brady Kannon stepping up for us here to talk about the next one on the docket here, the Mexico Open. I believe the former Doral, if I'm not mistaken, is what this is now in Mexico. And before we get to this one real quick here, just unbelievable 62, 9 under par to win at Riviera. Hideki Matsuyama, man, if he can bottle that up and take it to Augusta in a month, my goodness, that's the Matsuyama we've been waiting for. What a unbelievable Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And it was great timing, too. You know, you have this signature event with all the stars in the field. Football has come and gone. And then, bang, here comes golf with a loaded leaderboard. And it feels like you alluded to there, it feels like golf is off and running now. And here we go into the golf season. But just amazing by Matsuyama. Not so surprising that another Masters winner wins at Riviera. The connection between these two courses is just unbelievable. He becomes the 17th player that has won both the Masters and the LA Open, the Genesis Invitational, whatever you want to call it. And what was even more remarkable, I noticed when Matsuyama won the Masters in 2021, the runner-up was Will Zalatoris, and in third place was Xander Schauffele, which was exactly what the leaderboard on Sunday was at Riviera. Unbelievable, the connection between those two courses.
Could have used that info on Wednesday, Brady. That
Right.
would have been great.
Right. And Zalatoris was a guy I played in-game after Thursday because The only question for me was his health. And he comes out guns a-blazing, and I said, okay, this kid's ready. I'm going to back him here. And then he comes up just short. But Matsuyama
he
was
didn't
really
lose it,
not.
Though.
No, he didn't.
Matsuyama
went out
yeah.
and won it. No, it's pretty tough to beat a Sunday 62.
Yep.
And the shots that he hit on 15 and 16 were just unbelievable, literally to it within 4 or 5 inches. But Matsuyama was really not on my radar. He hadn't done much of anything yet this year. And then bang, he picked a great time to go low on Sunday.
Well, let's we'll dive into the Mexico Open here, because I also want to get your thoughts on. I think Scheffler's in trouble. I think it's only going to grow worse above the shoulders. You can't be number one tee to green and be dead last in putting before it starts weighing on you big time. But talk to me about this Mexico Open here. Feels like this could be a pretty big number when it's all said and done.
Yeah, it feels like a birdie fest, but it really hasn't been. Tony Finau and Jon Rahm, the winners the last 2 years. This is only the third edition. And you talked about it. It used to be Doral. Then they went to the WGC Mexico. And now that has morphed into the Mexico Open at Vedanta. And again, just the third edition here. Not a great field. Not a lot of stars in the field. Finau, the defending champ, is here. It's a big golf course. It's long, very wide fairways. And, obviously with Rahm and Finau winning, it has lived up to the billing as a bomber's paradise. You don't have to be too accurate off the tee. As I say, the fairways are very wide. You do have to be long. A lot of your approach shots are going to come from 175 to 200 yards or better. And we've seen a lot of big boy hitters, at the top of the leaderboard in the first 2 editions. So I pretty much went with big hitters, couple of shorter hitters, but I started with Nicolai Højgaard, and I'm going to go back to the well with this guy. Kind of a bad beat when he took second at Torrey Pines. Of course, I was on him there. I'm going to go back to him here. Torrey Pines, similar, where you got to hit it long. And Nicolai Højgaard, one of the longer drivers in this field. He's the second choice on the board at 16-1. And, there's a reason. I think he's one of the absolutely better players in this field. So I took a shot with him. Stefan Jager, another big hitter. He's played here in both editions previously, finished 15th and 18th. And if you recall, Joe, we go back to Torrey Pines. Jager actually had the lead for a minute on Sunday, ended up finishing third. So I think having been that close and gone through that experience elevates him to take the next step. He could get the win here. I got him at 25-1. Mark Hubbard, this guy has contended a lot over the last couple of seasons. I got him at 60-1. Over the last 24 rounds, he is number one in this field in strokes gained approach, and he's fared well at the Mexico Open before. Also comes off of a 4th place finish at Pebble Beach and a top 20 in Phoenix. Now, this guy's a little bit of a shorter hitter, Michael Kim at 60-1, but he's done well at the correlated courses. Last 24 rounds, he's 12th in this field for strokes gained approach. Very good putter, and he's finished top 30 here in the past at Mexico. And then Alejandro Tosti, a Florida Gator for you, Joe, at 66-1. Has a win from August on the Korn Ferry Tour, finished 6th in the Korn Ferry Tour Championship last season, and finished 10th here at the Mexico Open at Vedanta last year. Big hitter, scrambles very well. I think he's got a good shot at 66-1. And then finally, Austin Eckroat at 70-1. The guy's got a ton of talent and really kind of made a name for himself last summer at the U.S. Open when he finished top 10. And, he's kind of just been steady on the correlated courses, the stats, what have you. But I think in a watered down field like this, some of the talent is going to show up. And I think Eckroat could be one of those guys. I played all these guys outright and then also played him for a top 20 finish.
Yeah, definitely a bangers course here, and that list looks like a whole lot of guys that can hit the ball extremely long there. So should be a good one there as they get ready, of course, to make it to my neck of the woods here over the next couple of weeks and then eventually to Augusta. But I do want to turn back to Scottie Scheffler, who, again, led the field in every statistical category from tee to green. and he finishes dead last putting again. And it's really, putting is interesting, right? You hope that he's going to snap out of it because of how well he's playing. But, we've seen stretches where, 3 months, 4 months turns into 2 years when guys can't figure it out. Now they're switching putters. I'm worried, man, if he don't get it soon as we start to head into this season. The guy is he's so good every place else. There's no way it can't affect him moving forward. It almost feels like head-to-head matchups, pick the better putter against Scotty Scheffler because he's still overpriced.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the fact that you bring that up, I'm going to look for that. That makes sense. But you're right. I mean, this guy, he continues to give himself looks for birdie, and he never seems to be further than like 17 feet away. I mean, he just stuffs the ball in there every hole in and hole out, and he can't make a putt. And at Riviera, I saw him stuff one in there to about 5 feet. He misses the putt. It's just absolutely incredible. And you're right. This has to start weighing on his head and is going to affect him going forward. He was actually gaining about 2.5 strokes putting for the first couple days in Phoenix. And that's a tournament that he's won back to back. So maybe it's that putting surface. I just don't know. But boy, he's got to really get down to business as far as working on his putting. And I got to believe he will, because nothing else is going wrong. The guy blows everybody away as far as, hitting shots, proximity to the hole. He hits a ton of fairways. He's very accurate and long off the tee. And it just seems like every shot he hits is like 17 feet or closer, and then he can't make the putt. It's a wonder how he ever won at Augusta, because boy, do you have to putt well to win there, So, I love the kid. He's fun to bet on because he's looking at birdie every hole, but obviously you pay short prices. It's really a wild phenomenon. And the number one player in the world, the worst putter in the field last week. Pretty wild split there.
Yeah, no, it really is. The numbers are amazing when you look at it, tee to green, and then watch what he does on the green. He can't get, and you can see it in his face now. Putting is all mental anyway to begin with. So if he starts, the doubt starts to creep in. We've seen guys like Jordan Spieth go off the rails for a couple of years. Couldn't figure it out, right? Just couldn't get the putter there. Now he's got other problems. He can't remember the correct scorecard to sign, but that's a different story altogether. I do think this next month, though, Brady, it's going to be a lot of fun when it comes to the PGA Tour. Kind of weird seeing Rory in the booth because he's not really a part of the whole thing is a little weird. But we got plenty of great golf still ahead of us, my man. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Best of luck with those plays. In fact, NewsWire will close it out. Coming up next here on the Grid.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
What about any confidence, faith, optimism for them to get back into the top four?
But in terms of the league form, a lot of times it kind of drops off towards the end of the season because he demands a lot of his players. And they don't quite have the subs for rotation that some of the other teams around them have. So a little bit of a drop-off, I think, is expected for Aston Villa here.
Pro League Soccer powered by Marca. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in as we look to close out this edition of NewsWire here on the SportsGrid Network. I want to thank you guys so much for making us a part of your day. We've got much more still to come here scheduled on the docket here today, including, of course, Coast to Coast coming your way here in just a couple of hours. Scotty Farrell and company, they'll get you all ready to roll. Game Time Decisions, not to mention, of course, in-game live prime time and what is going to be a loaded slate of action tonight. College basketball, some great games. We heard from Ben Stevens earlier, and looking forward to the card here tonight. NHL action as well. We still have a couple of more days before the NBA returns. But quietly under the radar for Last Licks, we wanted to acknowledge one of the truly greats. Longevity is not necessarily something you get a lot when it comes to the NFL, but longevity is exactly what we got with the announcement here of maybe one of the greatest New England Patriots that we have seen in a long time. Everyone talks Tom Brady, and yes, but how about former captain Matthew Slater, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, special teams leaders that you can have on a football team. 16 seasons, has announced his retirement here as he is stepping down. Not all that shocking, obviously, as the Patriots are going through a little bit of a turnover here, but this is a guy that exemplified leadership with the Patriots through the good years as well as the bad. The NFL, not just the Patriots, the NFL is losing one of the great ones as he, after 10 Pro Bowls, 8 all-pro nods, 5 in the first team, and of course, he was also responsible for 3 Super Bowl championships with him. He's going to play golf now. Kudos for him. We'll see you again tomorrow on the SportsGrid Network. Good luck.